Hey everyone, welcome to the channel. But as we dive into today's chilling scenario, first hit that subscribe button and give us a like. Done? Much appreciated. So hey there, America. Let's talk about something fun. No, not puppies. Not a new season of the Great British Baking Show. We're talking about our national debt. Exciting, right? Here's the thing. It's over $35 trillion. That's trillion with a T. It's a number so big, it's basically meaningless. It's like trying to understand the size of the universe or the concept of infinity. Our brains just can't handle it. But here's what we handle. Understanding that this debt is like a giant, ticking time bomb. And if we don't do something about it, it's going to explode. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but someday. And when it does, it's going to be messy. So buckle up, Buttercup, because we're about to dive deep into the wonderful world of national debt. Okay, let's rewind the tape a bit. How did we get into this whole $35 trillion mess in the first place? Well, it's a long, complicated story. But like most long, complicated stories, it boils down to one thing: spending more money than we take in. Shocking, I know. See, for decades our government has been like that friend who throws lavish parties but never seems to have any money. They're always borrowing from you, promising to pay you back next time. But next time never comes, and you're stuck footing the bill. This whole spending spree started way back in the day, but it really kicked into high gear in the 20th century. Wars, social programs, tax cuts, you name it, we spent money on it. And we did it all with borrowed cash. Now, I'm not saying all that spending was bad. Some of it was necessary. But the point is, we never really figured out how to pay for it all. Well, guess what? Later is now. And it's time to face the music. Let's talk about tax cuts, baby. Those magical words that make politicians salivate and voters do the happy dance. After all, who doesn't love the idea of paying less in taxes? It's like finding a $20 bill in your pocket, except instead of 20 bucks, it's thousands. And instead of your pocket, it's the government's coffers. Here's the problem. When you cut taxes, you also cut government revenue. It's basic math, people. And when you cut government revenue, you have less money to, actually run the government. Things like, maintaining roads, funding schools, and providing healthcare. Now, proponents of tax cuts will tell you that they stimulate the economy, leading to more growth and eventually more tax revenue. And you know what? Sometimes they're right. But more often than not, tax cuts just lead to more debt. So, while tax cuts might feel good in the short term, they often come back to bite us in the ass later. And by us, I mean our children and grandchildren, who will be stuck dealing with the mountain of debt we're leaving them. Think of it as a reverse inheritance. Except instead of a house or some jewelry, they get a giant bill. Lucky them. Let's be honest, America. We love a good war, don't we? We're like the Michael Bay of nations. We love explosions, we love drama, and we love spending ungodly amounts of money on weapons. And boy, do wars cost a lot of money. We're talking trillions of dollars here, folks. Trillions. Think about it. The troops, the tanks, the bombs, the jets, the healthcare for veterans, it all adds up. And that's not even counting the cost of rebuilding the countries we just bombed back to the Stone Age. Now, I'm not saying all wars are bad. Sometimes they're necessary. Sometimes they're even just. But they're always expensive. And too often, we fight wars without thinking about the long-term financial consequences. We just charge it to the national credit card and hope for the best. But here's the thing. Wars don't just cost money. They cost lives. They cost opportunities. They cost our future. Remember recessions? Those fun times when the economy goes kaput, people lose their jobs, and the government has to step in and save the day? Yeah, those are great. Except for the whole destroying the economy part, and the putting us further in debt part. See, recessions are like a double whammy for the national debt. On the one hand, they cause government revenue to plummet. People aren't working, so they're not paying taxes. Businesses are struggling, so they're not paying taxes either. It's a tax apocalypse. On the other hand, recessions also cause government spending to skyrocket. Think about it. Unemployment benefits, food stamps, stimulus checks, all that costs money. And when the government doesn't have enough money, what does it do? That's right, it borrows more. It's a vicious cycle, really. Recessions lead to more debt, which makes it harder to recover from recessions, which leads to even more debt. It's enough to make your head spin. Okay, here's where things get fun. Because not only do we have to pay back the $35 trillion we've borrowed, but we also have to pay interest on that debt. You know, like when you borrow money from the bank or, God forbid, a payday lender. Except in this case, we're talking about trillions of dollars in interest payments every single year. And here's the kicker. As interest rates rise, so do our interest payments. It's like when you put that fancy latte on your credit card and then forget about it for a few months. Suddenly that $5 latte has turned into a $20 debt monster. Except instead of a latte, it's our entire economy. And instead of $20, it's trillions. Now, for a long time, interest rates have been historically low, which has been great for us because it's meant we haven't had to pay as much in interest. But guess what? Interest rates are starting to rise again. And as they do, our interest payments are going to start eating up a bigger and bigger chunk of our budget, leaving less money for things like, education, infrastructure, and scientific research. So the next time you hear someone complaining about high interest rates, just remind them that it's not just about their mortgage or their car loan. It's about our national debt. You know what they say, when America sneezes, the world catches a cold. Well, when it comes to our national debt, we're not just sneezing, we're full-on hacking up a lung. And the rest of the world is starting to get a little worried. See, America isn't just some random country with a spending problem. We're the world's biggest economy. We're the global superpower. We're the ones with the printing press for the world's reserve currency. So, when we do something stupid like rack up $35 trillion in debt, it affects everyone. For starters, it makes other countries nervous about lending us money. After all, if we're already so deep in debt, how can they be sure we'll be able to pay them back? And as their confidence in us wanes, so does the value of the dollar, which makes everything more expensive for everyone, including us. It's like a giant game of chicken, with the global economy hanging in the balance. Okay, so we've established that our national debt is a problem. It's a big, scary $35 trillion problem. But what are we going to do about it? Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Or the $35 trillion question. The truth is, there are no easy answers. Fixing this mess is going to require some tough choices. Choices that will be deeply unpopular with, well, pretty much everyone. We're talking about things like raising taxes, cutting spending, and maybe even defaulting on our debt. None of which are exactly crowd pleasers. But here's the thing. We can't just keep kicking the can down the road. We can't keep pretending that this problem is going to magically solve itself. We have to act. And we have to act now. Because the longer we wait, the harder it's going to be to fix. And the more painful the consequences will be. Okay, so we've established that things are bad, like really bad. But they don't have to be. Just imagine a world where America gets its act together. A world where we finally tackle our debt crisis and emerge stronger and more prosperous than ever before. It might sound like a fairy tale, but I promise you it's not impossible. The key is shared sacrifice and fiscal responsibility. We all need to be willing to do our part, to tighten our belts, and to make some tough choices. That means paying a little more in taxes, maybe cutting back on some government programs, and being more mindful of our spending. But here's the good news. It doesn't have to be all doom and gloom. In fact, tackling our debt could actually lead to a brighter future. Think about it. With less debt, we'd have more money to invest in things like education, infrastructure, and scientific research. We could create jobs, boost the economy, and secure a better future for generations to come. All right, let's get real for a second. What happens if we do nothing? What happens if we keep ignoring the giant debt-shaped elephant in the room? Well, let's just say it won't be pretty. Imagine a world where America is no longer the land of opportunity, but the land of IOUs. A world where our economy is crippled by debt, our currency is worthless, and our standing in the world is reduced to that of a broke, unreliable friend. This is not hyperbole, people. This is a very real possibility if we continue down this path of fiscal irresponsibility. We'll face soaring interest rates, runaway inflation, and a declining standard of living for everyone. The American dream will become a distant memory, replaced by a nightmare of economic stagnation and social unrest. It's a grim picture, I know. but it's one we need to confront. So here we are, America, at a crossroads. One path leads to a brighter future, a future where we confront our challenges head-on and emerge stronger and more resilient than ever before. The other path? Well, let's just say it's a path paved with bad decisions, economic turmoil, and a whole lot of regret. The good news is we have a choice. We the people, the citizens of this great nation, have the power to decide our own destiny. We can choose to be passive observers, to sit back and watch as our country crumbles under the weight of its own debt. Or we can choose to be active participants in our democracy. We can contact our elected officials, demand accountability, and insist on real solutions to this crisis. We can educate ourselves about the issues, engage in thoughtful debate, and hold our leaders' feet to the fire. Because this is our country, damn it, and we deserve better. The future of America is not predetermined. It's not written in stone. It's written by us, every single day, through the choices we make and the actions we take. So let's choose wisely, America. Let's choose a future worthy of our children and grandchildren.